folks, and welcome to this week's show. Today's special guests, we've got Ursula and we've got Peter. We're back again, and back again as well. This time, instead of doing Kate Bush's singles, which went down very well, we've had some lovely feedback on that. We're actually going to do Kate Bush's albums this time round. So this is going to be a really interesting one. I just want to add a quick point as well. I have a funny feeling we're all going to have the same album at number one. So that's my little side bet. We shall see. We shall see. I'm not sure. We shall see.
I've got that feeling as well.
Yeah, we'll definitely see. Can I also add as well, because I loved the show so much the last time, and I really like Kate Bush, but honestly, the last 6 weeks, all I've done is play Kate Bush incessantly. And I've got massively into her in a huge sort of way. So if you'd asked me 6 weeks ago what my rankings would have been, it would have been totally different. And there are some albums I'm totally obsessed with at the moment, which is great. It's lovely. It's like discovering something really new and exciting, you know, when you delve in. It's just great. So there we have it. On the last show, folks, we discussed how we got into Kate Bush, and we all got in the same way. And it was via watching Top of the Pops 1978, watching Wuthering Heights. So if you want to watch that and find out how we got into that, go and watch the other show. We don't want to sort of repeat ourselves again, otherwise it gets a little bit boring. But what we're going to do today, we're going to dive straight in. All right, we're going to dive straight in, and we're going to rank the albums and go through them up to 5 stars. So before we do all of that, we're going to put the ranking slide on the screen. And you can see on the slide, we've got the 5-star ratings. We've got 5 stars as a masterpiece, 4.5 is essential, 4 is excellent, 3.5 is very good, 3 is good, 2.5 is fair, 2 is weak, 1.5 is very poor, 1 is awful, and 0.5 will be don't bother. That I'm sure that won't apply today. That certainly won't apply. I'll be absolutely amazed if that happens. So we're gonna kick straight off and dive straight into it. Peter, would you like to go first? Oh, just before we start there, folks, quick pointer as well. We're going to include the director's cut, as you can see behind me as well. It's 10 albums, if I remember rightly. And we're going to go straight into it. And Peter, when you're ready, if you want to tell me what you've got in at number 10.
Right, number 10, I have got The Sensual World. For me, it's just not an album for me. It just I quite like the world, the track, The Sensual World. In fact, the first 4 tracks, I'm okay with the first 4 tracks, and then obviously it contains this one as work, which is a masterpiece. Lovely. But I couldn't tell you now how heads were dancing, or between a man and a woman, or I couldn't tell you how they go. You know, I can't. They just go in one ear and out the other. There's just very little for me. I've just actually noticed Never Be Mine's on it as well, which makes it 6 out of 10 tracks I like on it. That's odd. I really had this down in my memory as like, oh, there's just like 2 tracks and that's it. But no. Okay, so so yeah, that's really you know, it's just, I don't like the feel of the album either. It kind of feels a bit overproduced, and it doesn't sound like she's enjoying herself. And really, you know, it's not until you get to this woman's work do you really get an actual masterpiece, which, you know, with the Kate Bush album, we usually do. Anyway, so yes, I'm going to keep briefly that there. It is a 2.5 stars for me.
Right. Oh, he's gone in tight. Go on inside, and that's obviously the follow-up to the Hounds of Love, which it couldn't be any more different, really.
No.
Ursula, what have you got in at number 10?
Right. Well, I've started with the director's cut, purely for the fact that I've never even owned the album. I'm a great believer in the fact that if it ain't broken, don't fix it. And I just think, you know, she made these records, you know, great enough the first time round. I don't really see why she needed to sort of redo them, especially so soon after the originals. It wasn't like sort of 20, 30 years later. It was a few years later, just in some cases. And so I've never really sort of had a desire to get the album, and so I haven't really listened to it that much. Having said that, I do prefer this woman's work on the director's cut, because I just think that the original, you hear it too much. It's always, you know, on the background of some advert, or, you know, it's always sort of played, and it's just nice to hear that other version on the director's cut. So I think I like that one, but the rest of it, I think, you know, it's just, you know, it just doesn't sit right with me. It's I'm not keen on that album at all, and so because of that, I'll give it a 2 out of 5.
Right. Oh, I tell you what, we've gone low to start with. I'm genuinely, whoa, what a knockout stuff. I'm genuinely shocked. Right. Well, my number 10 is A Sensual World. As we said before, they're following in straight after the Hounds of Love, 4 years later, actually, 1989. It's a pastoral album. It's apparently described as 12 mini stories. Like the title track was supposed to be based on the James Joyce Ulysses passage about the character Molly Bloom, and she wasn't given permission for it. But I just think there's too much going on in the whole album. It's really, really busy. There's some songs I really like. I like Rocket's Tale, funnily enough. I like the Dave Gilmour bit, which is normally great. And Woman's Work, as you see, folks, check out our top 10 songs. A Woman's Work does feature a little bit of a spoiler there. I think it's absolutely breathtaking song. I really do, about a woman giving birth. But yeah, it's a strange album. I mean, I like Deeper Understanding. Computers and Relationships is a bit weird, but it works. But the rest of the album, I just find not very good. It's all right. Doesn't excite me. I put it on, played it a few times. It might grow on me, but at the minute it hasn't. And at the minute it's 2.5 stars. It's all right. It's all right, which is not sort of phrase I want to hear about Kate Bush, an all right album. So, and I'm a bit surprised and a little bit sad about it, but there we have it. So, Peter, what have you got in at number 9?
I've got in at number 9, I've got The Red Shoes, which has got some, you know, conking tracks on it. And So Is Love, amazing. Moments of Pleasure, one of my favorites. Song of Solomon, Lily, you know, it's got some pretty hard hitters in there, but it's As It Comes to the End, The Constellation of the Heart, Big Stripy Lie, and Why Should I Love You? Oh God, just awful. And I never thought I'd live to say that about Kate Bush. I wouldn't even put those tracks on a B-side.
Yeah.
I mean, I just like I can't believe I can say anything so harsh about any Kate Bush song, but those 3 songs. Now, the beginning of Why Should I Love You is so brilliant. And the demo of it, which kids, if you want to find it, it's out there. Can I just say a quick shout out, by the way, to the Kate Bush Encyclopedia website?
Oh, it's excellent.
Wow. Yeah. Amazing. You know, just brilliant. And yeah, so the demo of Why Should I Love You is just fantastic. Also, Rubber Band Girl, it just kind of falls flat. It just doesn't do an awful lot for me. But then, you know, there are The Red Shoes is, again, a marvelous song. And then the one that a lot of people think is, you know, is a bit of a comedy song, Eat the Music. I love.
Yeah, right.
I love that song. I absolutely love that song. It makes me laugh. And when I was doing my research, going through, I literally went through every track for every album. I realized that actually she likes a laugh. This is going to come up again and again on a couple of albums. There are some songs that she's just using humor and joy and yeah, it just Eat the Music for me. It's like, yeah, put a fruit hat on and off you go. It's a very, very strange song for her. And yeah, so I remember when it first came out, I really didn't like it, but over the years it has grown on me, and now I would give it a 3.5 stars.
Oh, right, a big jump, right? Okay, 3.5. Excellent, excellent. Right, interesting. Ursula, what have you got at number 9?
Okay, well, I also have the Red Shoes, and purely because I think it's a very uneven album. I think it's got a few good tracks, but it's also got a few bad tracks as well, and it's probably got more bad than good if I'm totally honest. I think I love the picture. I think it's very, the sleeve cover is very picturesque, and
Yeah.
I was quite excited when it came out. I thought, oh, this looks a good album, but then when you play it, you know, it's got some very good high points, but some very low points. I mean, I love Song of Solomon. I love the Red Shoes itself. Moments of Pleasure, I would love to listen to it, but I can't sit through it without welling up with tears. It's one of those very personal songs because it's about, you know, like the death of the mother, and Alan Murphy, a guitarist, and she mentions, I think Bill is, you know, all these people that have died through her life, and after about a minute I've got to just turn it off because I'm just sort of in tears. So I'd love to listen to it, but you know, it's just a very, very emotional song. But that's a good one anyway. And unlike Peter, I think Constellation of the Heart's a great song. I really, really like it. I think it's got like a disco-y feel. I think it would have worked well sort of coming out in the sort of late 70s with the early stuff, because it's got that kind of disco vibe to it. So I quite like that one. But I agree with what you say about the rest of the sort of second half of the album. It's, you know, it doesn't really do much for me. So because of that, I'll give it a 2.5 out of 5.
Right, okay, still in 2.5 win. It's 2.5, right, okay. Well, we've got a hat trick here for number 9 because I've gone with Red Shoes as well. Based upon the great film about the dancer made by Michael Powell and Emmerich Pressburger, which was based on the Hans Christian Andersen sort of fable as well, isn't it? It's about a dancer who puts on these shoes and can't stop dancing and sort of immersed in it. When I was a little kid, I used to buy Roy the Rovers comics, and they used to have the character Billy's Boots, which is the same sort of thing. He used to put these football boots on and he became a great footballer. So same concept. For me, the album is just way too long. It's the classic CD failure of everybody from mid-80s onwards. For about 15, 20 years, they thought they had to fill up a CD. And it's, you know, and people forget anything over 45 minutes really just about turns into a double album. And there are not many great double albums, you know, and this is 55 minutes long. It's for me, 15 minutes too long. Stuffed with too many guests. I mean, Clapton, Jeff Beck, who's one of my favorite guitarists, Prince, you can tell Prince in about 2 seconds, Nigel Kennedy, Gary Brooker from Procol Harum. I mean, even Lenny Henry features on it. You know, there are far too many guests. It's just like, come along, come and play with me, see what you think. It's
Max of writers.
You know, there's. Sorry, Peter.
Don't you think that amount of guests, it smacks of writer's block?
Yes, it does. I think it really does. Therefore, why release it? You know, I think you're dead right. There's some songs I like. I like Rubber Band Girl. I think it's a really nice pop song, actually. I don't think it's anything more than that. I absolutely love And So In Love. With that sort of, it's got Clapton on. It's got a nice little feel, even though I personally can't abide him as a person. Eat the Music. I like it. It's got a real Paul Simon feel to it, and that sort of whole world music thing going on, which was quite prevalent at the time. So I do like that. I absolutely love Song of Solomon, which is a woman's plea to her male partner. And I love the line, I don't want your bullshit, I just want your sexuality. I think that's a great line. Absolutely fantastic. Really like that. Red Shoes, I've just written terrific song, you know. And then Top of the City, I quite like. And then I've just written way too many songs, makes it dull. And it's 3 stars, just under 3. I'll give it 3. I'll be generous and give it 3. That's roughly where I've got it. I'm being generous because some of the songs I really, really like. It could have been a great album. As you say, I think she had writer's block, and I think there's just the concept, the idea is great, but the execution, unfortunately, doesn't work for me. So there we have it. Peter, what have you got in at number 8?
Right, I've got Never Forever.
Oh, right, okay.
I know. Well, it was getting hard at this point. To be honest, after those 2 albums, after Central World and Red Shoes, it gets very. There's not a lot in it. There's really not a lot in it, and you know, they could. They're interchangeable, some of them, but yeah, I'm gonna stick with what I said. I'm going for Never Forever. Again, I feel like it was a rush release. It feels like she'd had, you know, so much success with Kick Inside and Lionheart that it was, you know, she was pushed into it. And
yeah, there's a whole year. If you think about it, there's a whole year's gap there. In those days, it was two albums a year in some cases, certainly in her case. But yeah.
And also, I think she was very young, you know, she was learning, you know, she was still learning about, well, about life. I mean, for God's sake, she, you know, hardly out of her teens, you know, at that point, you know, really. So one couple of the things that I found out whilst doing my research was on Babushka. She said, we got through a lot of boxes of broken crockery to get the right sound at the end. The canteen ladies were not impressed. Which I rather loved. All We Ever Look For, I thought, is an incredibly sort of personal tune. It's she has she clearly has an analytical mind, and it really comes through in this. I love the lyric, all we ever look for, another womb, all we ever look for, our own tomb. And it's like, wow, you know, it's just, you got me that. It's just incredible. The Wedding List is another comedy song. You know, it's inspired by the Truffaut film, The Bride Wore Black. You know, she goes off killing the people that killed her husband on the wedding day, and you know, it's funny. You know, it's a funny tune, and there's, you know, that sense of humor coming right through there. And then Night Scented Stock is 52 seconds of just vocal. It's so strange. And then suddenly the album shifts into the 2 really big parts of the album and the 2 very political songs. You know, you've got Army Dreamers about a grieving mother who's lost her son at war. And then Breathing, about a fetus as a nuclear bomb drops. So it leaves, yeah, I mean, they are, there's some incredible songs here, but it's just disjointed. And there's a couple that don't really like stick in my memory that well, which is why it sort of came down the list a bit. But it's still an astonishing album. It's still a great album, and it's still, you know, it's 4 stars for me.
Oh, so we're already at 4 stars on number 8. Okay, good stuff, Peter. Ursula, what have you got at number 8?
Right. Okay. Well, I was going to say all the albums from now on, I agree with Peter. They're very hard to judge between, because I think from this point on, she did all good albums. There was no bad album from this point onwards. But unfortunately, at number 8, I've got to put one of them, and it's this one, 50 Words for Snow. And I do like the album. I think the first half of the album is great. I love the first 4 songs, but I do think you have to be in a certain mood to listen to it. It's like you were saying on the last podcast about, does it have to be Christmas before you put it on? Well, it doesn't have to be Christmas, because I have listened to it sort of midsummer as well, and it works really well in midsummer too. But I do think you've got to be in a certain mood. It's very sort of dreamlike, very peaceful. I love the first 4 songs. Snowflake is a beautiful song. Lake Tahoe is very sad. I love that song there. Misty's great. It's probably the best song on the album. I love the way it sort of builds. You know, it's quite a long song, and it builds up to this sort of, crescendo at the end. It's quite a good interesting track. And Wild Man, I like Wild Man. I'm glad you released that as a single. I think it's a real sort of rocky number. So the first 4 tracks I think are great, but then I think it just kind of meanders off a little bit towards the end, and you kind of lose interest a little bit after that. So because of that, I would sort of put it as number 8 on my list. But it's still a good album. I mean, I do like that album. You know, I mean, it's not the sort of thing you'd put on as you're getting ready to go out on a Friday night with your friends, but I mean, you know, apart from that, you know, it is a very listenable, very sort of relaxing, good listen. So I'll give it 3 out of 5, I think.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, okay. I listened to that the other day when I was going to the match, bizarrely, yesterday, actually, when I was going to the match, which is a bit weird, because I normally like listening to Dexy's Midnight Runners or The Jam or something really energetic, and it was like listening, that was really a bit surreal. Just because for the show, preparing for it, I thought I'd give it another go. But it doesn't feature quite yet for me. I've got the director's cut in at number 8, which came out in 2011, and it is a mix of Sensual World and Red Shoes. I mean, it's really like the greatest. It's the best of those 2 albums put together, is the way I look at it. And I really quite like it. I really do quite like it. And it might be, if you ask me in 2 years' time, it might be much further up on the list. But at the minute, it's down at number 8. I mean, she changed the lyrics from Flower of the Mountain, which was Sensual World. And again, I like some of the mixes on the songs. Woman's Work, I really like the Fender Rhodes feel on it. I do actually quite like that, you know, and it's odd hearing a voice having weathered a little bit, and hearing slightly different versions of these songs with an older voice, and it's got a bit more of a sort of laid back groove on the album. It's got all this overproduction removed on a number of the tracks, so I quite like that. It does give it it gives the whole album a proper feel as a single standalone album, which I do like. You know, so it does sit alone on its own for me now. I like it. I'm not going to go too much into it because you've already said quite a lot of the stuff that I would say. And I've given it 3.5 stars. I think it's a very good album, actually. And it might reach much higher point 6 months down the line. So that's my number 8. Peter, what have you got in at number 7?
Well, I've got the director's cut. And again, similar to yourself, I love the production.
Yeah.
Much dirtier sounding. There's less going on. I've put here that the Red Shoes sounds like it's been remixed by Jason Spaceman, you know, him of Spiritual Art. Because
yes.
in it, I'm like, that sounds like Spiritualized. And that's So, and it does feel like an arrow pointing towards 50 Words for Snow. So this is where I'm going, kids. You know, it definitely, you know, it's just that underproduced.
Yeah, well, it does, because they're so closely released as well, aren't they?
Yeah.
So yeah.
And just so many of the songs, you know, just all the versions are better. Rubber Band Girl for me is so much better. It takes it from being like quite a little, you know, okay pop song to being like, yeah, really good. Deeper Understanding, get it, that makes it feel quite 80s and strange and weird, so I'm happy about that. Moments of Pleasure, I love the way that she almost speaks it, and like Ursula, you know, it becomes a hard listen, especially as by that point, you know, I knew what she was talking about. Let's just say is, you know, having lost friends and what have you, and the way it's underplayed is incredibly painful, but it's just beautiful, just incredibly beautiful. So, and also the one last thing is I bought it on iTunes, and the digital booklet is just amazing. The photography, like, I mean, just stunning, just absolutely incredible. So yeah, and for me, it's a solid 4 stars.
Okay, we're getting there. Ursula, what have you got at number 7?
Right, well, number 7, I'm sorry about this, Peter, because I know you like it, is Ariel. So Ariel is, as you know, or as Cape fans know, it's an album of 2 halves. And I must admit, I actually prefer The Sea of Honey to A Sky of Honey, which is the shorter sort of mixture of tracks. I've tried sort of listening to A Sky of Honey, you know, at least half a dozen times. And I just find after sort of, it's great for the first 5 or 10 minutes. And then after about the first few minutes, you start sort of, your mind starts wandering and you think, shall I go and make a cup of tea? Or, you know, I just can't seem to stay focused on it. And I have tried, I have given it a good, you know, half dozen listens to try and sort of like, you know, see if I can get it, but I just can't. And it's not that I don't like, you know, long songs or concept songs, because, you know, things like Tubular Bells by Mike Oldfield, I can listen to that intently, and things like Supper's Ready by Genesis, you know, I mean, that's got a, you know, a dramatic part every few minutes through the song. So things, yeah, well, I mean, songs like that I can listen to without losing my attention at all, you know. But I just find A Sky of Honey, I just can't, you know, I like the first 5 or 10 minutes and then I just can't sort of concentrate on it after that. But however, the other side, the first side, Sea of Honey, I think it's got some great songs on it. I love King of the Mountain, and when she did that live, it was a superb song. I thought that was really good that she when she did that live. I love Pie. You know, people say, oh, you can sing the telephone book and make it sound interesting. Well, she literally did that, didn't she? Because Pie is just a collection of numbers 3.14 onwards, and she did it, and I think it's a great song.
Yeah, that's the mathematician in you coming out there, you see.
Yes, I know it must be. But I was going to say, I love, is it Mrs. Bartle? I kind of Yes, yeah, because she never actually mentions the name in the song, does she? She just talks about the washing machine. I like that song. I think it's quite sinister. You know, on a first listen, you think it's just about someone doing the washing, but it's actually quite sinister when you listen to the lyrics. So I like that one. I love A Coral Room. It's that's a lovely song at the end of the record. And I just think it's a nice collection of songs. You know, I think if she just released that on its own, I would have placed it much higher. But like I say, I mean, you know, I don't think A Sky of Honey's bad. I just can't concentrate on it so for too long. So,
Can I recommend?
yeah, go on.
Just recommend next time if for some reason at any point you get flu or something like that and you're stuck in bed,
Right.
pop it on then,
Okay.
and maybe it'll come into focus. Or literally just lay in bed, do that, meditative breathing, and let the whole album go. Because it took me a while to get it, but once you get it, you got it. So
I put it on when I walk the dog, actually, and I specifically put that side on when I take the dog for a walk. Sometimes I either like a last bit of jazz or something late at night, so I don't want anything too heavy. And it's beautiful. It really is. It really, really works. But anyway, I digress for now. I'll come back to that.
I'll give it one more try then, and let you know. Let you know how I get on.
So, how many stars have you given it, Ursula?
So 3.5 out of 5, because it's still a decent album, but I just like I say, I just haven't got it yet. So I'll give it 3.5.
Cool. Well, my number 7 is 50 Words for Snow. Came out in 2011. I love like the sort of soundscape factor of it, of falling snow. I think it's lovely. It's a terrific album. As I say though, I can only listen to it at certain times of the year. I will try it at some point when it's a warm day, but I'm not sure I'll get it. It's based upon the old Inuit idea of 50 words for snow. I don't know if that's true or not though. The musicianship's fantastic on it. I mean, Steve Gadd's one of my favorite drummers. He's just magnificent on it. He always creates a lot of space when he plays. He's a fabulous player. I just really like it. Snowflake, what a lovely song that is. You can almost hear it so gently hitting the ground. That's excellent. I like the title song with Stephen Fry, and he's talking over it in that very sort of English style. But again, I think that adds to it. I actually think that really adds to it. I think Misty is fantastic about someone who builds a snowman, comes to life. They have a night of passion. In the morning, there are wet sheets, which is rather mental. It's I'm not sure I can ever watch The Snowman ever again by Raymond Briggs in the same sort of manner, same sort of feel again. Really clever, but great. Wild Man about the abominable snowman, another excellent tale. I mean, Elton John's on it. He's not quite in club style singer mode, but it works. I think it's a lovely album. I think it's a really, really lovely album. But because I can only feel I can listen to it at certain times of the year, it's much further down my list than it probably could be. So hence the fact I've got it. It's 7, and I've got 4 stars. It's an excellent album. If people haven't heard it, go and give it a blast because it's terrific. It really is. Lovely album. So there we go. Peter, what have you got at number 6?
Right. I've got The Kick Inside, which obviously, we've said before, is getting difficult. But, the job had to be done. So, yes, The Kick Inside, number 6. It's a love album. It's mostly love songs on there. One thing I didn't know was that she was learning to dance with Lindsay Kemp before she recorded the album. So I think that kind of, when I heard that, I thought, yeah, that really makes sense, because opening it with Moving is a clever way to do it, because she does almost set the album spinning, and then it just you whirl through it. It is perfectly paced. There's nothing in there where you think, oh, I'd move that song. I just didn't, so it is perfect in that sense. I didn't know that The Man with the Child in His Eyes won the 1979 Ivor Novello Award for.
I didn't know that either.
No, that was on the good old KateBushEncyclopedia.com.
I can see why, though. As people, if we watch our top 10 songs, we'll find out our thoughts on this song.
Yeah, I mean, let's not repeat ourselves about that. It's a stunning song. Wuthering Heights, it's why really we're all here, you know, it's what really, I mean, what a smack in the face to the whole world, you know, it just, you know, it's just one of those absolute perfect songs.
I think we said at the time that was more punk rock than punk rock,
Yes.
you
And
know, because it was so out there.
I agree with you. I mean, I know it's why some people you would say that they hate Kate Bush because of that vocal, you know, that screeching vocal, or what some people consider screeching vocal. I don't. Just want to be clear about that. Another thing I found out was that some people believe the saxophone song to be about David Bowie, but she denied it. And she said, literally, it is just as about saxophone. I love the saxophone. And I think that's really cute that, you know, she does Moving about Lindsay Kemp. She's writing about something she loves, someone she loves, and the, you know, the dance that she loves.
Although,
and
of course, Lindsay Kemp famously had an affair with David Bowie as well. So there is some tenuous link there, you know. So they were both obviously, and she's a massive Bowie fan. Her first ever gig was, I think it was the Spiders from Mars final gig at the Hammersmith Odeon. So I think that was her first ever gig, and she's a massive Bowie obsessive as well. So yeah.
So maybe she denies it. Maybe.
Who knows? Okay, Peter.
So yeah, where was I? James and the Cold Gun, we talked about on the favorite songs. Yeah, just corking little song. And as I said, you know, it really, the whole album does feel like a love song, and it feels like a young girl discovering love and sexuality for the first time, particularly when you get to Feel It, which, how, you know, that got past the censors, we'll never know, but pure filth. Ms. Bush, really. And then something I found out yesterday, I didn't know that Kick Inside is about incest, about a sister who gets pregnant by her brother and then kills herself. So bit of a wham to the end.
Yeah, wow, I didn't know that either.
You know, it keeps the album as a sort of love album, but finishes it with a sort of bullet between the eyes. So
it was a mythology song as well, based on Greek mythology or something, some story or something it was based on. So I'm not sure.
That would make sense. Yes. Yeah. Yes. So yeah, that is my number 6, and it's 4 stars.
Right, okay. Interesting. Ursula, what have you got at number 6?
Right, well, I'm going to be very unpopular here with everyone, because my number 6 is probably most people's number 1, and it's that one there. So, wow. Hounds of Love. And I'm going to tell you why I've got it at number 6, because I just think those first 2 singles, the first 2 tracks of the song, Running Up That Hill and Hounds of Love, just gets played to death, like year in, year out on the radio. And it's as if she never existed before 1985. It's always Hounds of Love or Running Up That Hill. On the very odd occasion, you might hear Wuthering Heights, but it's always Running Up That Hill or Hounds of Love. And it's even worse, I think, after this year with Stranger Things, because it's, you know, being sort of hyped up even more than it usually is. So Hounds of Love, when I play it from track 3 onwards, because it's actually like a very good album from track 3 onwards. And I love the songs at the end of side 1. I do love Cloud Busting, and I think The Big Sky is a good song as well. I think that's a good single. I love Mother Stands for Comfort as well. I think Mother Stands for Comfort would have suited better the Dreaming album. It's got that kind of vibe that would fit in well with the Dreaming. And I I wonder if she wrote it around at the same time, you know, and just didn't get a chance to put it on the album, so saved it for the next one. But I really think that would suit the Dreaming album. But like I say, the end of side one is great, and then obviously the Ninth Wave. I mean, everyone rates the Ninth Wave. It's just a really good story about, you know, her drowning and trying to stay alive and stay awake to prevent herself from drowning. And you get all these sort of mixtures of songs coming in, and great tracks. I love Under Ice, it's very dramatic. I love Waking the Witch, it's just so weird and out there. And also Hello Earth, I think it's really nice, you know, how she brings the male choir in. I mean, she's never done that ever since, you know, before or after. And I think it really sort of lifts the song. It's, you know, it'd be nice to see her try it again one day. I think it really makes the song with the male voice choir. But like I say, great album. I just really don't like the first two tracks, so I've got to listen to it from track 3 onwards, and for that reason alone I put it at number 6. But it's still a good album, so I'll give it 3.5, maybe 3 3/4 out of 5.
Right. You're tight, you, Ursula.
I know I am.
I remember doing the XTC thing. It took ages to get top marks. Right.
I know, I'm fussy.
Right. My number 6 is The Kick Inside. Came out in 78. I've written here, it's basically obviously an introduction to the oral experience as Kate Bush, sonically like a banshee and as delicate as a butterfly's tear, is what I've written down. It's a real mix. It's a super album. We've got members of Cockney Rebel in the band Pilot on there, and it wasn't her normal band on the opening. They were basically given to her. Paddy, our brother, features on it, and we've got Alan Parker, the guitarist, who was with Bowie for a little bit, is on it, but that's about it. I love the artwork, mind you. I love the sleeve. It's a cracking sleeve, that Oriental style cover. I've written it's a romantic album. She wrote most of these songs when she's like 13 to 18. And you've mentioned moving there with the Lindsay Kemp thing, and I've mentioned this sort of affair Bowie had with her as well. And she apparently the first thing she did when she got it, she signed it and put it, I believe, under the door for Lindsay Kemp to discover, which is really lovely story. Oddly, it starts off with a sort of whale call as well, doesn't it? And then the album finishes with it. And it always reminds me of the same sound that Pink Floyd have on Animals, which was a year earlier. And obviously the Dave Gilmour link as well is clearly prevalent. So there is some sort of clear link between sort of Floyd and Kate Bush. It definitely comes through for me. I'll tell you what I do love. A saxophone song I've written. She recorded it originally as a demo in 75, and that's what got her the record deal, as one of the songs that she recorded. Kite, I love it. It's like a sort of 70s TV theme tune, you know.
Yeah, I like it.
It's like, you know, I remember the one from Man About the House and like Robin's Nest, which Richard O'Sullivan actually wrote himself. It's got that sort of 70s comedy show vibe. Really like it. Man with a Child in His Eyes, wrote at 13. I've written phenomenal. Go and watch this show in terms of what my views are on about it. But I think it's one of the greatest songs of all time. Wuthering Heights, amazing, based upon watching the TV drama version of the book. Great song. We've just discussed that there. It's just nuts, yet amazing. James and the Cold Gun gets a mention on our TV, on our top 10 show as well, so give that a watch. L'Amour, Looks Something Like You is a super song. Really like it. Beautiful feel. I've written, is it about a one night stand? I'm not sure. The lyrics might infer that it could be. Who knows? Them Heavy People. I really like it, but I can't get out of my head Pamela Stevenson impersonating her, doing that song. And I think the line is getting into my leotard. And it's really catchy. They were really clever sort of mocking version of it. It's really great. Lovely song. It's just a great album. It's a debut album. It's absolutely sensational. And I think I'm quite tight giving it 4 stars. I've given it 4, and it could have been 4.5, but I've given it 4 stars. It's a fabulous album. Gets played an awful lot by me. It would have been much higher on my list 6 weeks ago, but by the way, So my taste has dramatically changed in a very, very short period of time. Peter, what have you got at number 5?
Right, number 5, I've got 50 Words for Snow. It does stand alone, I think, as a Kate Bush album. It stands as, like I mentioned in the songs thing we did, you know, it's almost like a post-rock album. It sounds like a kind of late talk sort of thing. It very sort of complex and minimal at the same time, which is contradiction, but you know, there you go. Snowflake is just such an incredibly beautiful song, you know, about the birth of a snowflake and sung by her son.
Mm-hmm.
And that to me is so touching, so incredibly touching. Like, it is just, what a tribute to your kid, you know, incredible. Lake Tahoe, I didn't know this, but apparently based around a thing that people occasionally see, a woman who fell into the lake in the Victorian area and rises up and disappears again, ghostly sort of thing. You know, that's a very Kate Bush world to be in, but beautifully done. Misty, just so incredibly beautiful. Wild Man, you know, a soft look at a creature that's supposed to be terrifying, but you know, giving heart to, you know, the abominable snowman or yeti or whatever it is. I think it's very clever. And then Snowed In at Wheeler Street. I mean, it's Elton John's greatest song. That's for certain. You know, it's, you know, it's how she got him to restrain his vocals, I don't know. But the concept of that song, of two lovers passing through time like that. I remember years back that I was, well, still am, a big Throw Muses fan. And I can't remember which song it is, but there's a song with the line in it is, and when we die, don't leave me in another life. And I thought that was like just the most like beautiful sentiment. And then she's written, you know, this essentially a song completely based on this theme of two lovers completely connecting and interconnecting through time. It just kills me, absolutely kills me. And then 50 Words for Snow, I think again, it's people underestimating her, you know, her sense of comedy. You know, it's not all serious. It's not all serious or weird. You know, sometimes it's just fun. There aren't 50 Words for Snow, that has been confirmed. And she said herself that she thinks it's quite funny, and her particular favorite was for Lumpala Jumpala.
Yeah, she just made them up, didn't she?
Yeah, but she's like, if you don't think that she's got a sense of humor by the end of that song, there's something wrong with you. So, and then to end with Among Angels, it just, you know, so delicate. I mean, and the album comes in very delicate and goes out extremely delicate. And I just particularly love the line, I can see angels standing around you. They shimmer like mirrors in summer, but you don't know it. And that's just incredible. I think that's talking to someone, that's almost like talking someone out of depression or something. And it just it's almost like a tribute to everybody, you know, to that you could use for, you know, anyone in a negative situation. You know, you don't see it, but I see angels around you, and they're like, whoa, boom. So, and that for me is, that's it. We've reached the 5 stars.
Oh, wow. We're 5 stars all the way now then. Wow. Okay, that's interesting. So, Ursula, what have you got in at number 5 then?
Okay, well, number 5, I've got The Kick Inside as well. I think it's a great debut album with some of her best songs on it. I mean, obviously it's got the Wuthering Heights on that we all know and love. I love Moving. It's a very nice opener. I love the opener to that album. The Man with the Child in His Eyes. I actually prefer the single version to the one on the album. The single, it starts with like, he's here, you know, and it's a bit more touching than the one on the album. I think the album just comes straight in, but still great to be on the album anyway. And obviously the Kick Inside itself, like you were saying about, it's a suicide song, and it's just strange that, you know, she's probably the only person ever to write a song about suicide and sing it in a sort of form. So I kind of speak now. Sing it in the form of a poem, you know. It's very sort of moving, very sort of chilling, and the way it just ends at the end of side 2, I think, you know, it's quite, you know, it makes you sit up and listen. But I think definitely the first side of songs for people that still listen to sides rather than CDs, the first side I think has definitely got the better group of songs on than side 2. I think side 2 starts off well with James and the Coal Gun, and then I think it kind of meanders a bit with you know, kind of samey kind of, you know, like you say, a lot of them are love songs, quite samey, but I think side 1 is a very strong side, and it's got a great collection of songs to it. But I think whether you like the album or not, or whether you like Kate Bush or not, I mean, she's got to be commended for, you know, the majority of that album, like you said, was probably written before she hit the age of 18. So I mean, just that alone, whether you like Kate Bush or not, or whether you like the album or not, just the fact that she could write such a collection of songs and such a great body of music, is just sort of outstanding. So like I said, it's a great debut. You can't really fault it, and I'll give it a 4 out of 5.
Okay, right. Well, there we go. We're at higher stakes now. We're up to 4s and 5s. My number 5 is Ariel, released in 2005. It's I've written here joyous and a real grow of an album. I'll be honest, this has shot up the lists for me over the last couple of weeks. Again, ask me in a few months, and this may be even higher again, or considerably higher. It's like how, you know, I've written like Hounds of Love, an album with 2 halves. So as you were saying before, it was going to be a double album, or it could have been released as 2 separate albums. So the first album, Sea of Honey, King of the Mountain, great. It's got this reference to Elvis if he's still alive, and a reference to Citizen Kane and the Rosebud reference within that. It's quite joyous, actually. I quite like it. I'll be honest, I'm not sure about Pie. It's the one song that really, I've knocked half a mark off for that song.
No, it's the best one.
It's the non-mathematician in me that I don't get it. So it's the one track on the album. I think, I don't really like that very much. I love Bertie. It's so joyous. It's just unadulterated love of a child, which, you know, as a parent you get. You think, oh, that's fantastic. I totally get it. Mrs. Bartolozzi, however you pronounce it, fantastic. You know, I think I've copied the quote down, which says, it says that she's this lady in the song who does lots of washing. It's not me, but I've written this song. I wouldn't have written this song if I didn't spend a lot of time washing, which is what you do when you have a child. A lot of people think it's funny. I think it's great, because I think it's actually one of the heaviest songs I've ever written, she writes. And just talk about how interesting clothes can be. because they say a lot about a person, which is true. Actually, which it is true. Your clothes or your outside skin aren't going to tell you about what type of person you are. I think it's really interesting. There's something unusual and odd about it, yet works brilliantly, and it does have this element of heaviness to it. A really, really great song, actually. Coral Room, beautiful, about lost, fabulous song, isn't it? But it's the second side for me that really works, I think, which is really great. Sky of Honey. I love the Architect's Dream, the Painter's Link, lovely, great. I love the flamenco on Sunset. But it's the last few songs that really are just amazing. Somewhere in Between is fantastic. But I love Nocturne. I think it's an amazing song. I love the groove. I love the rhythm of it and everything. And at the end, when we hit Aerial, you're absolutely pumped up. It's like the sheer joy of the next day. You've done 24 hours all in one go there, and it's that sheer joyousness at the end of the album. I'm struggling to think of any more albums that have such an uplifting finisher, because most albums are like great albums or go down and think like Rock and Roll Suicide or whatever, they've got these real sort of sad moments, they don't have this big uplifting, joyous occasion, which this album does. I think it's fabulous ending to an album. I mean, the side 2 is 5 stars for me all day long, but I've given it 4 stars. I think it'll go higher. And again, I'm maybe being a little bit tight. It's been an absolute revelation listening to this over the last few weeks, and it's grown and grown. I texted Peter a few weeks ago about it when I was listening to it, going, "Oh wow, I'm absolutely knocked out by it." So it's an excellent album, and it really is a grower. It really is a grower, and I suspect it will go higher and higher for me. So, Peter, what have you got in at number 4?
I've got Lionheart. Just, a fantastic album. Got some of my favorite of her songs on it. Starting Symphony in Blue, In Search of Peter Pan. I think In Search of Peter Pan, it's so cute. So cute. Literally just exactly what it says it is. And just like such a beautiful, mad, bonkers little Gatebush story. Great. Wow. You can tell the cynicism is setting in by then, can't you? Because it really is a swipe at the entire entertainment industry, and by then, she'd obviously had enough of record company people telling her what to do and what have you, and I think it's a nice little slap in the face. Don't Push Your Foot on the Heartbreak. She said she wrote it in the style of a Patti Smith song, which is only a good thing, being a massive Patti Smith fan. Just fantastic romp. One of the few Kate Bush songs that really accelerates, that with James and the Cold Gun and violin. But, she's not one for those, that sort of heavy song. But, also quite a comedic lyric, love it. Oh, England, my lion heart, it's like a tribute to England without falling into that nationalist kind of thing, and then there was something I found on the encyclopedia yesterday that I thought made me laugh, so I thought I'd share this with you, that evidently when performing that track on the tour of life, she wore a heavy flying Second World War flying jacket thing, and she was naked underneath it. And somebody found out and offered the bloke who owned it £1,000 for it, but he said he turned it down. He said the person was so besotted that he wanted to buy the coat, but I was so besotted myself I wouldn't sell it.
That's one for the dads.
Which I think is just, you know, because there was a time, you know, she was a beautiful young girl, and there was a lot of that, you know, the not 9 o'clock news skit that we alluded to earlier, you know, where they said,
oh, she was from my perspective, she was absolutely beautiful.
Yeah.
You know,
and the industry was selling women in that way at the time.
Well, if you think at the time, I mean, obviously, I don't think there's any more objectified female artist than Debbie Harry. You know, beautiful, may I add. You know, and but, people overlooked their great music and thought of Blondie was her, and it wasn't. It was the band. You know, but again, you know, she's the perfect example, and other great singers and attractive ladies as well. You know, Chrissy Hines as well at the same time as well. You know, again, massively objectified at the time.
Yeah, and I like, yeah, I like that she played with it, but also she knew what she was doing. The woman wasn't being messed with, even at that young age. You know, that's why, you know, I think Wow is such an important song, because it really was her sort of beginning to say, don't mess with me, because, you know, I'm going my own way. And then that's when we get into the second side of the album. And, you know, Full House, when you read the lyrics, I think it's about analysis. I think it's about psychotherapy and analysis. I'm sure it is. I'm sure it's about the early days. And I don't know whether she'd just been reading Jung and that sort of thing, or if she was in therapy. But to me, that is the feeling that I get from that song. And then In the Warm Room is, I've got it here as the follow-up to Feel It. You know, it's a woman expressing very strongly her sexuality. So clearly she wasn't scared of her sexuality, and, you know, good for her, especially at that time, you know, the Savile era, you know, for God's sake.
Yeah.
But then she goes into Kashka, you know, Kashka from Baghdad, about two men living in sin at the edge of a village, and, you know, and as a young queer boy, that was quite like, well, oh my God.
The irony of that song, Peter, is that she was supposed to do In the Warm Room on the BBC, and the BBC banned it because of the sexual explicit nature of the song, and it is. So she ended up doing Kashka from Baghdad, which they clearly didn't cotton on to, you know.
Brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And then we get into Coffee Home Ground, which we talked about a lot in the last song, in the last thing. So let's not say too much again about that. But it's the one thing I will say about it. It's another comedy song. You know, someone thinks they're being poisoned, and all the lyrics on the web at the end say "Hemlock on the rocks," and she says "Hemlock on Xerox."
Right.
Because I'm having that as a tattoo, you see, and I'm Hemlock on Xerox. I want it just to fill this space here, and I'm having Hemlock on Xerox. I don't care. And then, you know, finishing with the classic Hammer horror, you know, about an actor who gets the role of the Hunchback of Notre Dame, and the role he wanted for years, and then something happens and he dies, and so his friend takes over the role and is haunted by the ghost of the person who was really meant to play it. And just a wonderful story.
And it's really camp, Peter, isn't it? You know,
it is. And, you know, it's just, you know, the way the album starts for this you know, with the gentleness of Symphony in Blue and In Search of Peter Pan. You know, it started that, and it's, you're not quite sure where you're going, but by the second side, she's heavy hitting.
Yeah.
Really, really heavy hitting. So full 5 stars from me.
Yeah. Ursula, what have you got at number 4?
Well, number 4, I've got an album that's very overlooked, and I know you two
right.
put it further down. I think The Sensual World, I think that was much better than Hounds of Love. Everyone rates The Hounds of Love as being a masterpiece. But I think that first side of The Sensual World, the songs they're all great, the songs on that first side, and they just get better and better as you go along. They start with The Sensual World itself, which is a great track and lovely video as well, and it sort of as you move through, you know, the songs just progress and get more and more sort of in depth. And The Fog, I think, is a lovely track. She's got her father talking at the start, which is quite a touching you know, idea to put her father on the song. It's a lovely atmospheric song. And Heads Were Dancing, I think, is a great song. It's very dark lyrics about dancing with this tall sort of stranger, and then find, you know, realizing it was Hitler. It's the sort of thing that you'd see in, you know, Tales of the Unexpected, where you have a little twist. It's the sort of thing, the sort of story you're getting that. So that's a great song, and it's got that lovely eerie kind of out-of-tune violin playing towards the end of it, which I think Nigel Kennedy does the violin playing on it. And it just the whole song, I think it's definitely one of her best songs. It would have been in my top 10 had you not had 10 more better songs to put in the top 10.
Yeah.
But Heads Were Dancing, I think, is great. And then so the whole first side is just wonderful, and then you turn over thinking you've heard all the best songs, and then you get Rocket's Tale, which is even better than the stuff on the first side, I think, because it's just such a rocky sort of uplifting tune. You know, I really like it. So The Sensual World, I think it's great. I think it's definitely one of her overlooked albums, and I'd give it about 4.25 out of 5, because side 1's definitely better than side 2, I think. But definitely 4.25 out of 5.
Right, well, I'm going to go back and listen to that then.
Yeah,
that's interesting. No, that's interesting to hear. I like hearing something different. That's cool. Well, my number 4 is Never Forever, which came out in 1980, went to number 1 in the UK charts. It's an album which progresses from a balladeer style stuff on the first 2 albums, and it becomes far more experimental. She's got the Firelight sampler, which she's started to use, which Peter Gabriel introduced on his 3rd album, Melt. We've got some truly great songs on it. I mean, Babushka, which we mentioned on the top 10, about a woman disguised herself in order to see how faithful her husband is. And then we've got Violin. I absolutely just love on the album. I'm not necessarily going to order here. It's proper, like, it's like a mix between Toya and Lena Lovitch. It's got this mad sort of vocal thing. She was doing it on tour, I believe, as well in '79. I just really like it. I think I love the chorus on it. It's probably one of the songs that I've been playing the most over the last few weeks. I just love the violin thing. It's just really, really good. There's some really sad songs on it. Blow Away, mourning about those who've died. And she mentions like Keith Moon and Buddy Holly and stuff. That's really sad. All We Ever Wanted, about family relationships. Egypt, like it. You know, again, I've written here Peter Gabriel experimental tone, and I've just written in brackets, great song. Wedding List, could have been on our previous 2 albums, actually. It's really got that sort of sound to it. What else have I got written here? Inspired by the gothic horror movie The Innocents, which in turn was inspired Henry James' novel The Turn of the Screw. Stories about a governess who believes the ghost of her predecessor's dead lover is trying to possess the bodies of the children she's looking after. Nuts, absolutely nuts. But she was massively influenced by film and stories, as we know, and a lot of her songs just takes and she writes a whole epic song about it, which is just a sign of genius. Army Dreamers, again, it appears on our previous show. Great video, absolutely beautiful on it as well. Really poignant, really sad, perils of war and the death of a young son. Heartbreaking, actually, in this beautiful little waltz feel, and then Breathing again, about the perils of nuclear wars. Peter mentioned before there, and Fallout. It's another epic tune. A truly terrific album. Shot up my lists in the last few weeks, I have to say. It was much lower down. And I've got it at 4.5 stars. Maybe it's even 4 3/4. It's right up there. It's a fantastic album for me. It really is. Really top draw album. Peter, what have we got at number 3?
Right, at number 3, I have got The Ninth Wave and The Hounds of Love. Because for me, it's The Ninth Wave. You know, the sleeve says Hounds of Love one side, says Ninth Wave the other. The photo for The Ninth Wave is so incredibly beautiful. Yeah, so for me, it's Hounds of Love and Ninth Wave. I completely agree with Ursula about the first few tracks. Running Up That Hill, Hounds of Love, Big Sky, you know, it just bing, 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 done, gone, overplayed, ruined, you know, put in the same box as Love Will Tear Us Apart by Joy Division, and, you know, any other of those sort of things. Can't think of any now, but
Ever Fall in Love by Buzzcocks, play it to death.
Yeah,
Absolutely love it, play it to death.
Teenage
Every breath
Kicks,
you take by the police.
yeah, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
Put them all in the box, and it's like, thank you everyone for ruining those songs. So that does, and I can't go back to the time when I first heard it and remember how I felt about those first 3 songs. I can't remember if I remember hearing Running Up That Hill and thinking, wow, this is amazing. But I don't think I actually did.
No.
Because I think, you know, it wasn't for me until Mother Stands for Comfort that it really, I was like, you know, like, huh? What's occurring here? You know, and oh, one thing I found out, the album's launch party was at the planetarium, the London Planetarium. Who knew?
Yeah, I didn't until the other day.
Oh, Kate Bush Encyclopedia. And then Mother Stands for Comfort. I kind of wondered what that song was about. So I had a look yesterday, and it's about the love of a mother for a son who's a murderer. And I recently read Sue Klebold's book, who was she was the mother of Dylan Klebold. Remember the Columbine shooting?
Oh, yes.
If you want to read a book about it's immense. It is incredible. And that track now becomes kind of even more poignant for me because, like, you know, it's the kid may be a murderer and everybody else can hate him, but that's still your son, you know, and wow. And then Cloud Busting, you know, I just love that song. You know, the just saying it can even make it happen. That line actually sticks in my head quite a lot. I say that to myself quite often. You know, sometimes if you're just feeling a bit gloomy, you're just like, no, I'm okay. I'm fine. Just saying it can even make it happen. I can shake myself out of this. And so I often come back to that line. And yet it's about, was it Reich? Oh God.
Yeah, the inventor of the machine. Yeah.
Mad inventor, and you know, the terrible things that happened to him, and you know, that's a very sad story. And then of course we're into the Ninth Wave, and a lot of that I talked about last week. Whenever. yeah, last time. You know, about the whole thing about being lost at sea, and you know, and Dream of Sheep just being so incredibly beautiful. I'm so pleased that that video that she made is still online, you know, that you can see that, because it does, yeah, it's just, you know, and then Under Ice being so sinister, and then, you know, the Waking the Witch. And I always love that someone on the encyclopedia, they tell you the names of who does what, but someone says, wake up, child, pay attention. You know, that
Is that
just,
a mum? I think that's a mum. Is that not
that
a mum?
wouldn't surprise me. But again,
All the family on it.
it felt like, you know, it felt like you know, we're at the darkest point of the ninth wave at that point, and she drops in this little nugget of almost like 1950s black and white movie humor.
Yeah, because I love the bit when he goes, wake up. It's lovely, isn't it? You know.
You know, and then I didn't know, but Jig of Life is about the future self of the person coming to give them help, to say life is coming. And then you get Hello Earth, and, you know, she's there in the water looking up at the sky, and, you know, and then with the funny little German bit at the end that I didn't know yesterday, until yesterday, means deeper, deeper, somewhere in the depth there is a light. And then I started to think, Jesus, is this whole ninth wave about analysis? And then am I going too far? Am I overthinking? God, I overthink everything. Why wouldn't I overthink it? That's what I do. That's what I specialize in. But then, you know, it ends with the morning fog, and we're all okay. And so that's it. You know, that for me is, well, you're not going to let me say 6 stars. It's the 5. It's the full 5. Of course it is.
Yeah. No
Despite
problem.
having had the first few tracks ruined by national radio, it remains the full 5.
Good stuff. Excellent. Ursula, what have you got at number 3?
Right, well, number 3, I was very hard. It was hard to judge what I could put at number 3 and number 2, because it was very close for me. But number 3, I decided on this one, which is The Dreaming.
Oh, well,
so,
okay.
And yeah, I was going to say it was a most adventurous album up to that point. Like the first 3 albums had come out, and you know they were quite easy to get into, really. But The Dreaming, I must have had to have at least sort of 4 or 5 listens before I, you know, had to decide on whether I liked it or not. I thought, do I like it? Don't I like it? Will I like it? Won't I like it? And, you know, I was really sort of confused. I knew I loved Sat in Your Lap, because, I mean, that was the single that came out prior to it. But I really wasn't sure about it. And then after about 5 listens, I just thought, wow, the songs on here are really, really good. They're so different and so unusual. And, you know, it just really sort of makes you sit up and listen to it. It's a great album. And I love, well, all the songs really are good on it. I love Suspended in Gaffer. I love There Goes a Tenor. I think the lyrics and the way she sings, that's really clever. And I think it wasn't until I read those lyrics I realised what a good lyricist she was, because up to that point I just knew Kate Bush as a sort of good sort of songwriter and musician and pianist and singer. But then when you hear some of her lyrics, you know, she's really clever lyricist. I love Night of the Swallow. I think that's a beautiful song. Get Out of My House is a great track to end the album. I think it's really sort of quirky, really different number. The only one I don't really like in it, and that's the reason I've probably put it in 3rd place and not higher up, is I don't like Pull Out the Pin. I've tried to listen to that a number of times, and I just don't like it. There's something about it I just don't like about the song. I don't know what it's about. I don't really like the temperament of it. just, it's the one song that I have to skip if I have to skip a Kate Bush song. I just don't like it at all. And I think if that was not on the album, I'd definitely put it higher up. Like I say, Mother Stands for Comfort, I would have thought would have been a nice song to go on there as well. I think that would have suited the vibe of the album, but that came later, of course. But anyway, so great album. I think it's really good once you get into it, and I'll give it 4.5 out of 5.
Right, okay. Oh, we're rocking up there now. My number 3 is Lionheart, which was released 6 months later after A Kick Inside. Slaughtered in the press at the time, absolutely hammered it as an album, and it was getting 2 stars and so on and so forth. And so it was patchy and not a patch on the previous album. I don't get that at all. Some of them are complaining about the production values. Again, I don't get that. Don't understand it. For me, it's a romantic album in terms of the way that Wordsworth, Taylor Coleridge, Keats are romantics. It's got all of that going on in the album. It's beautiful, beautiful album for me. A lot of stuff's already been said. It's the first album that features Del Palmer, who was a massive influence on her life, of course, bass player, but also her long-term partner. So he has a huge influence on the album as well. So his bass playing at times is outstanding on all of the albums. It's got numerous literary links on this album. Symphony in Blue, terrific opener. Search of Peter Pan is just great, and mentioned before, it's a song about childhood and family relationships. Marvelous. Wow. About the music business, which Ursula was just saying about, how cynical, and we were talking about how annoyed she got at this point by the whole thing. Sounds, the newspaper actually said, I hear this mediocre chanteuse crooning away through this silly love song, and realised that a lot of people would like to go to bed with her, but buying all her records seems a curious way of expressing such desires. I mean, what a shitty thing to say about, absolutely appalling. They're self-entitled sort of writers thinking that they're Billy Big Balls. I don't get it. Wow was an incredible song, and again features in our top 10. Go and watch the show. We go into it in huge depth. Don't Push Your Foot on the Heartbreak is described and mentioned earlier on like a Patti Smith song. It's definitely as punk rock as Kate Bush goes, but it's a great song. I love it when she belts out, come on. It's like a sort of full banshee moment there. Great. We mentioned earlier on in the Warm Room being banned. I just love the fact that I love that Kashka from Baghdad was replaced at live. Hilarious. Coffee Home Ground, again, we've mentioned that. And again, lovely song. The whole album for me is outstanding. It's a terrific, terrific album. So much for the weaker second album. It's a 5-star album for me. It's absolutely great. Love the whole thing, even the weird album sleeve, I love the whole album. It's just a great, great album. So it's 5 stars. I've reached 5-star territory now. Terrific album. And there we go. Peter, what have you got in at number 2?
Number 2, I have Ariel. And I don't know, what can I say that hasn't already been said? I don't want to go through it bit by bit, because, okay, the first side of it, the Sea of Honey, yes, that does feel like separate tracks. But as we talked about on the last show, to me, the second, Sky of Honey, is one song. And as I said then, it at a time that I was ill, it really saved my life. And it's just so incredibly beautiful. It just, amazing. So, the first one, King of the Mountain, beautiful, love it, amazing. Pie, I think's fun. I think it's another bit of a sense of humor. Bertie, I mean, to write a song about your kid like that, I mean, that's just incredible. Mrs. Bartolozzi, bonkers, Kate Bush, brilliant. How to Be Invisible, again, it's me thinking, is it another one of her analytical songs? Joni, tribute to Joan of Arc, A Coral Room. We've discussed, you know, the memory and the heartbreak, and the Little Brown Jug being the aide de memoire. So yeah, I don't want to go into massive detail about the whole thing, but I think that this album will elevate itself in time. You know, in some senses, you know, the history of modern music is, you know, it's quite young. You know, we've only had, when did the first record player come out? You know, the old wind-up ones. You know, we've only had music in our homes for a short amount of time. Whereas something like Hamlet, you know, has been treading the boards for hundreds and hundreds of years. And I firmly place Ariel on the level of Hamlet. I think in 600 years, this album will be still, if we're still around, I think I would put money on this album still being revered, whereas many of others that are revered these days will have fallen away, because I think it is an absolute work of genius. And the only reason it's not number one in my list is because of my own personal nostalgia, and we'll get into that when I get to number one. So there you go, Ariel.
Okay, interesting.
Works of art forever, and it's a 5.
We could have a whole conversation about what's going to be remembered in 500 years' time. I think there'll still be a number of artists that we think are top draw will still be remembered in 500 years. There'll be some who hopefully be long forgotten, but others will definitely will forever last. You know, last that sort of period of time, or forever in many artists' cases. I suspect Kate Bush will be one of them. Ursula, what have you got at number 2 then?
Okay, well, my number 2 is Lionheart. Okay, and Lionheart, I think, like you were saying before, it gets a lot of bad press, and people keep saying it was like the second rushed album straight after her debut. And yes, it was rushed. It was, you know, only a few months when it came out after the first album. But the reason that it was rushed, I think, is because she had such a huge body of work and such a great number of songs written to that point and to that standard that you know, they had to put it out because she just had so much good stuff ready prepared. And I actually think the songs on Lionheart are actually better than The Kick Inside. She's got a great body of work on it. I think songs like Hammer Horror, it's a really strong closing section of the song. Coffee Home Ground we spoke about before, great quirky number. I love In Search of Peter Pan. It's such a pretty little song, and the way it blends into Wow, you know, which comes on after it in the album. I just think it's got a great few tracks on it, some of her best tracks, to be honest. I really don't see why people sort of underrate the album and say, oh, it's not as good as The Kick Inside, because to me it is as good. And you know, she had good songs written for The Kick Inside, but I think she saved some of her best ones for Lionheart, and you know, rightly so, because I think, you know, it came out and it proved to people that she wasn't just a one-hit wonder, and she, you know, she was more than just this gimmick and this lady with a high-pitched voice. She proved that she could write really decent sort of rock songs, which I think the album has. I also like the cover. I think the cover is very sort of like warm and inviting. You sort of look at it and it kind of invites you in to listen to the song. It's a very sort of warm, cozy album, and it doesn't disappoint. And the reason I put it at number 2, because I was going to put it at number 3, but I put it at number 2 just because I don't think there's a bad song on it. I mean, every song on it is listenable to, it's enjoyable, it's good, and I think it's a really good album, good Kate Bush album, and I'll give it just under 5 out of 5, maybe 4 3/4 out of 5.
Yeah, I think the album cover always reminds me of something like of The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe or something.
Yes, yeah.
It's got that real warm glow to it,
And
you know.
yeah, warm sort of magical feel to
Yeah,
it. Yeah, it's lovely.
definitely,
Mhm.
definitely. And Hammer Horror, it's one of them songs that I think it's that and Violin have been the two songs that I've been humming around for bloody weeks now, you know. I like been doing something and then all of a sudden I realize I'm humming the Hammer Horror. It's just, I don't know, can I get my head around it? It's great. Right, my number 2 is Hounds of Love. Came out in '85, and unlike used to, I love the first 2 tracks. And it's because I've managed to see my 2 kids go, oh, I really love these 2 tunes, and they go, oh, tune, as they shout out when it's on in the kitchen, and oh, this is a banger, Dad, you know, and they'll put it on, so you go, all right, okay, that's great. So it's a bit of a thrill to see younger kids getting into songs that you really like, you know, and getting that sort of first impression that you may have had 35 years ago or 37 years ago as it is. So I love all that sort of thing. So yeah, it's just a great album. Again, an album of 2 halves. And like I was mentioning before, the romantic aspect of a character about stories, it's a different sense of romanticism again here. And again, that romantic aspect of the great poets in terms of the album being in 2 halves. And the second side is definitely a sort of romantic poet type of story. It could easily, there's a clear link to sort of Taylor Coleridge, you know, the sort of Rime of the Ancient Mariner, that sort of feel to it, you know, that you could easily put to this, you know, the idea of being lost in sea or whatever, you know, and everything's in life is engulfing you and taking you over, and that sort of panic aspect to it. There's a clear link. There's a clear literary link for me in terms of the Ninth Wave. But before we get there, the other songs, side 1, the pop side, if you like, great. Run Up the Hill gets mentioned in our previous show there on the songs. Obviously, Stranger Things has turned into a worldwide hit. I didn't know, though, that it would have got to #1 in Britain if they'd allowed the current standard of allocating songs to be divided fairly. But because it's an old hits apparently, for every 2 listens, it counts as 1, which I think is nuts. So you have to get twice as many listens to something else to actually get to #1. I find that deeply unfair. And so it should have been #1 and wasn't. It got a #2, which doesn't make sense. So Cloudburst, I've written great. Hounds of Love, analogy of being scared and running away and being chased by a pack of hounds because you're scared to declare or fall in love. I think it's very clever. Really love the song. The whole of the first side is just great. You know, I think we mentioned before the Wilhelm Reich thing, the idea of psychology was mentioned with regards to Cloudbursting. So that's, yeah, great. Love all of it. Let's have a look. What else have I got written down? And then, yeah, the second side, which is obviously the other contrast, the Ninth Wave. And she told Richard Skinner in '92, the Ninth Wave was a film. That's how I thought of it. It's the idea of this person being in water. How they got there, we don't know. But the idea is that they've been on a ship, they've been washed over the side, so they're alone in water. And she said, I find that horrific imagery, the thought of being completely alone in this water. And they've got a life jacket with a little light on. So if anyone should be traveling at night, they'll see the light and they know they're there. And they're absolutely terrified and they're completely alone at the mercy of the imagination, which again, I find personally terrifying. And she said the power of one's imagination let loose on something like that. And the idea that they've got in the head that they mustn't fall asleep, because if they fall asleep when they're in water, they'll drown. So try to keep yourselves awake. It's just a remarkable album. I've written just here, sublime in massive letters. That side is just incredible. It's prog rock at its best. If Genesis had done that in 1973, 74, you know, people would be wetting themselves over it, you know, and quite rightly so, you know. It's as good as a concept as The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway or anything like that. It really is magnificent. It's a really great concept. Very, very clever. And for me, again, as stated earlier on, 5 stars all the way without a shadow of a doubt. But it's not my #1. So, Peter, what have we got at #1?
At #1, we have got, of course, The Dreaming. And the reason that this came in at number one above Ariel for me is purely because it was the one that pushed her from, I loved her. I thought she was amazing, fantastic. But when I got into this, it was just like, whoa, she's something else. This is tipping me over the edge into obsession. And yeah, I mean, opening with Sat in Your Lap, you know, the thirst for knowledge for people that can't be bothered, you know, again, it comes back to, am I thinking of like, yeah, she's talking about analysis. I didn't know that Nick Launey was one of the engineers on the album, which I found so strange. You know, considering the amount of work that he's done with like Killing Joke and Nick Cave and Birthday Party and Pill and what have you. I think maybe that makes a bit more sense, and maybe he encouraged her to like, yeah, go full weird, forget the hits. You know,
well, the whole album's got that public image groove to it, doesn't it?
It just, you know, I love that she literally took like the concept of like being commercial, you know, shoved it in a pot of petrol and dropped a bloody bomb. That's it, commercial. I no longer care. And, you know, that's when an artist, you know, she might not have done it on other albums, but, you know, did she ever go into the studio and try to write a hit? We don't know, but we would know with this is purely her not thinking really about anybody else. I mean, she might not have done on the other albums, but to me, this one, it certainly seems like the thought of having a hit was very far from her mind. You know, again, with There Goes a Tenor, she's using her comedy thing that she's used on The Wedding List and Coffee Home Ground, you know, about a bank robbery that goes wrong. Again, it's, you know, it's another very filmic thing. Pull Out the Pin about the Vietnam War. I didn't know that she mentions a little silver Buddha, but a lot of Vietnamese used to wear a little silver Buddha on a chain. And when they went into action, they put it in their mouth. So Buddha was on their lips, which like kind of threw me yesterday, sort of reading that. It was like, wow, that's, you know, so sometimes you can hear, you know, we've all heard a lot of horror of the Vietnam War, but it doesn't, to me, it doesn't get old, you know. Suspended in Gaffer, I mean, what a strange song, you know, wrapped up in gaffer tape. Like, and that again, like, where am I going with this? Well, obviously I'm going back to analysis. You know, she's like, I felt like I was wrapped up in gaffer, you know, like being bound and like trying to get out of gaffer tape. And it's just one of the strangest songs ever written, and can only be about, well, to me, can only be about mental confusion. And then Leave It Open. Maybe the weakest track on the album for me. Although still fantastic. I think it's, again, it's clever lyric. To say it again, it is an analytical thing. You know, the line, the lyrics switch from "I keep them shut" to "I leave it open." You know, that when she does that, you know, it's like it's her thought processes, and so I think it's clever. And then Into the Dreaming, which simple song that seems to be about just a tribute to native Australians. Evidently, though, I read there was something about they call a certain time of year they call dream time, when animals take human form, and the other word for it is the dreaming. So, you know, Night of the Swallow. Well, that was in my top 10, and I talked quite a lot about that, and I've already waffled too much about this album. But yes, such an amazing song about the fear of someone, of losing someone, you know, and she's put it into a pilot who's flying these dodgy characters. But really all it's about is the fear of losing someone. So, and then to follow it up with All the Love, with the lyric, "Only tragedy allows the release of love and grief never normally seen," is very, very clever. You know, that's almost like, okay, the pilot guy didn't come back. And so now she's saying, only tragedy allows the release of love and grief never normally seen. And that really hits deep, because, you know, there is a state of grief where it's not an everyday state of being at all. It's not something that you can maintain. There's times it's almost a precious thing. And you know, that catches it so well there, you know, particularly that one line for me. And then she slips into Houdini, you know, a simple but twisted little love song, you know, and which inspires the cover of the album, Passing the Key, and when she kissed him and that sort of thing. You know, love that. Great song. It's kind of a bit of a lift after the previous two songs. And then Get Out of My House, evidently, I didn't know this, but inspired by The Shining. But then the house is a human being. And yeah, it's the person, she said, the person has been hurt and has decided to keep everybody out. They plant a concierge at the front door to stop any determined callers from passing, which again, you know, it's such an incredible way of thinking. And you know, the way she ends it with the mule screaming, the he-haws, that's very Nick Lawney to me. You know, that's like that. It feels to me like Get Out of My House is like, maybe he was the one saying, "Sod it, just do it. If you want to end it with a screaming he-haw, then do it." You know, I could be entirely wrong, but, and I don't want to give anyone else credit for her work, but it's just, you know, maybe just the way I see it. So that for me is, and because it came before Ariel, and it was the one that really pushed me into obsession, is why it comes in above Ariel, and it's the full 5 stars.
Okay, brilliant. Wow, massive depth there. Ursula.
Right, well, I was going to say, before I start, nothing trumps The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway, not even Bush. I thought I'd just get that in. Right, my number one, you've probably guessed, is this album here, Never Forever. I think a bit like Peter, it's more for sort of sentimental reasons, because it was the first album I sort of saved up my pocket money for, and sort of to the shops when it was in school holidays, and you know, and I sort of picked the album which I mean, I liked Army Dreamers, but I picked it because of the sleeve. I just think the sleeve's got a beautiful cover. It's got a, you know, really picture, you know, really sort of good graphics, good images on the cover. So I liked that, and I just sort of it was the first one I took home to listen to. I mean, obviously I'd heard of other stuff, you know, I'd heard Wuthering Heights and Wow and things, but Never Forever, it doesn't necessarily have my favourite Kate Bush songs on, but the reason I've put it at number one is because it's got the most variety of her songs. I think it's got something there for everyone. I mean, it's got her eccentricity, you know, it's got babushka and violin, which shows her eccentric side. It's got a more sort of doomy, like despairing songs like Breathing and Army Dreamers. It's got beautiful songs like Delius. It's got sad songs like Blow Away, which was written for a lighting director who sadly died. It's just got a song for everyone. And I think if you met someone on the street who'd never heard of Kate Bush or wanted to get into Kate Bush and said, like, what album could I start on? I think Never Forever would be the ideal album, because it just has something for everyone. So not necessarily a best songs. I mean, it hasn't got Wuthering Heights, it hasn't got, you know, some of her classics on, but it does have a lot of good songs on it. It's got something for everyone, and there's not a weak song on it. I mean, every song is likable to some degree or other. It's a really good listen. You know, so you get a lot of albums where you think, oh, I'll just skip that song, or I'll just turn it off before the end. But that one, it's a really good listen. You can listen from start to finish, and it's a really good album. Egypt is good as well. I must say that as well. I think Egypt's a really nice song on there too. So for that reason, I put it at number one, and I'll give it 5 out of 5.
Hey! We got there. Right. Well, mine number one, I thought all three of us might have had The Dreaming.
I did. Wow.
I nearly did.
Yeah. So I've gone with The Dreaming, and it's one of those albums. I think you're right. There's no way would you start with saying, oh, listen to The Dreaming as the first album to get into Kate Bush. Because it's actually quite hard to get into as an album. It takes a little bit of time. It's a bit like listening to a great Roxy music album or XTC. It takes a bit of time getting into it. When you do, it's absolutely nailed you. But it's not one of those that you immediately go, oh, yes, love this straight away. It's just a proper grower. And once you've got into it, it's absolutely incredible. This, for me, is a most experimental album. If David Bowie had released this, or Peter Gabriel, or Talking Heads, people have been wetting themselves over it, you know. It's amongst those sort of great artists. It's up with any of their great albums. It's a great piece of work. It's a proper masterpiece for me. I've said you a difficult first listen. It's a classic art rock album. So we've mentioned already Sat in Your Lap. Great song. And have a look at the top 10 chart to see where it comes in. There goes a tenor. It reminds me of Robbery, Assault and Battery by Genesis. I love the faux Cockney accent on it. Really funny, really cool. Just a great song. Pull Out the Pin, Peter mentioned in huge depth before. Remarkable song about the Vietnam sort of conflict from the perspective of the Vietnamese. So really unusual. And remember, the other Vietnam song of the time, written in '82, although came out later, was Bruce Springsteen's Born in the USA. And again, an anti-Vietnam song. It's a very clever song. I love Pull Out the Pin. I love the sort of full scream that she has on it, and the sheer shock value of it. Brilliant. Suspended in Gaffer, just nuts. About something that you really desire in life. You know, what is it? We don't know. Leave It Open, I've written dystopian. And again, back to that literature feel, it's that dystopian factor of that we're just vessels, and it's repetitive, and there's something about it. I really like the song. The Dreaming, great, you've already mentioned it. We'll skip Rolf Harris. He appears on 2 albums as well.
Yeah.
Night of the Swallow is very Irish tone, hasn't it? You know, the pipes and the penny whistle. All the love is haunting. It's so beautiful. She has her friends on an answering machine, and she's edited them like say goodbye, and it's that sense of loneliness. It's just a real haunting song. It really gets to you, I think, you know, it really does. It's possibly my favorite song, or certainly one of the favorite songs on the album. Houdini, just great. And obviously the album sleeve replicates that with the K on her tongue. It's a beautiful sleeve, by the way. And then Get Out of My House is about an alive house. 5-star album, absolutely breathtaking album. It really is. When I do my album years, where we've started with 1970, and when we get to 82, it'll be in there. I'm not sure where it'll be, but it'll certainly be in there in the top 5. I just don't know where yet. But what a great album. So, folks, there are choices. It would be lovely to hear what you have to say. And if the feedback's as good as the last time, we look forward to reading it. So please leave your feedback. Please subscribe to the channel. You'll see it down at the bottom there. So please subscribe, hit the like button. We're having loads of people watching them but not subscribing. Please do, you know, please do. And thank you very much. Until the next time, take care and goodbye. Bye-bye.
Bye.